Unfortunately, another conflict has erupted on this planet, this time in Ethiopia. According to the latest developments, rebellious forces from Ethiopia's Tigray region fired rockets at Eritrea's airport in the capital city of Asmara on Saturday evening, confirming early reports of a major escalation in a 12-day-old conflict in Ethiopia. Sam, what the hell is going on in Ethiopia?
Yeah, yeah, it's a sad development for sure. During the last few months, there was a significant escalation between Tigray leaders and federal forces under the control of current Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed. There was a surprise attack on federal forces. The surprise attack was by Tigray People's Liberation Front. And this surprise attack led to a complete mobilization of forces by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed against the Tigray region. Internet was cut off, utilities were cut off, although some people claim that Tigray leaders themselves have done that. And now it's a complete national conflict pretty much. There has been massacres, there has been clashes, and as you mentioned yesterday, there was the huge development of rockets being fired from Tigray to Eritrea, which Tigray leaders have accused of helping Ethiopia's federal government in the killings of Tigray people.
Yeah, and I've read that thousands, some like 10,000 Ethiopians have already fled to Sudan. But
Yes.
Sam, what's the history of Ethiopia's Tigray region? It's in the northwest of the country bordering Sudan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, history of Ethiopia is generally fascinating history because it's one of the few nations in the world that was not colonized, at least officially. Italy tried to colonize it, but it did not succeed. But let's get into the more recent history. In the more recent history, from 1991 onwards, pretty much, there has been a coalition that has ruled Ethiopia in many ways, and this coalition was pretty much formed by five different major parties from five different regions of the country. This coalition was called Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. The major group within that coalition was Tigray's People Liberation Front, the group that is leading the rebellion right now. When the country was led by this coalition for the last 20.
Interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Sam. But so then the Tigray region and its officials, they are part of the official government.
Not now, not now.
Not
Let's get into the very recent history. For the last 20 years, this coalition, more than 20 years, sorry, 30 years, this coalition led Ethiopia largely under for 21 years of it until 2016. Same prime minister who led Ethiopia into major economic development, although at the same time he was accused of favoritism towards his own clan, which was Tigray, and form authoritarian attitude towards others, blah blah blah. So he wasn't without flaw, but compared to any other leader in that region, he was a relative Democrat, and he it was more of a coalition than a one-man show in Ethiopia. In 2000, he would the prime minister would pass away. I think in 2013, his deputy prime minister came to power. He was in power until 2016 when there was large protest against changes to farming rules and expansion of Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. There were large protests. These protests started about land reforms and that type of thing, but it then snowballed into being about economic situation, about being human rights in the country and all that. This led to election of Abiy Ahmed as the prime minister in 2018. And one of the major issues that Ethiopia has been, struggling with was a war with Eritrea. They had about 20, 30-year war with Eritrea, and which, was a very bloody conflict, led to displacement of many people, mostly on the Eritrea side. there was the agreement in the year 2000 in Algeria, which basically called for Ethiopia to leave occupied territories of Eritrea, and they did not do so though. They kept refusing, kind of like the Armenian Azeri situation. In the end, Eritrea, with the election of sorry Abiy Ahmed, he signaled his willingness for negotiations and for ending the conflict completely. So they met with Eritrean government officials and they came to a peace. And this peace agreement was heavily criticized by the Tigray Liberation Front. They saw it as a betrayal. Tigray is the region that has borders with Eritrea, and they, to be in the last 30 years, they basically held all the major military and political positions within Ethiopia. So a lot of people, and they by the way, the Tigray people form only 6% of the Ethiopia's population. So even though they were, for example, 6% of the population, they held about 50% of the political positions and military positions. And that's what makes them especially dangerous right now, because Tigray's Liberation Front's militia is pretty much this, like, it's not much smaller than federal forces, to be honest. And they were the ones who were leading the war against Eritrea, so they have much war experience. Uh, Mohammed Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. Since he has come to power, there has been, he won the Nobel Peace Prize because of his peace with Eritrea, but there has been increasing criticism of his administration. He's been accused of using corruption as a front for racial profiling against Tigray people during the last 2 years. And that's nothing to do with Tigray people especially, but during the last 2 years, Ethiopia has had the most amount of displaced people in the world, who are forced basically to move their houses, move their homes, mostly in the south though, not in the Tigray region, in fact, mostly in the south. And in many ways, so far, there has been a few massacres, sadly, in one of which 500 people in a village were killed, and then they were forced to flee to, I believe, Sudan. The rest, and in these conflicts, so far, international community have accused Tigray Liberation Front of committing those. Although nothing is clear, nobody knows who did these massacres, but that would make more sense because it's against other ethnicities than Tigray people. So again, it's not clear cut, but it seems that Abiy Ahmed is not exactly a Democrat either, but Tigray Liberation Front's actions seem to suggest that they are more, they seem angry, and they seem marginal. They feel marginalized because they had power for so long, and now they are losing power. They are being purged from the political offices. Abiy Ahmed says it's because of corruption. They say because it's racial profiling. Oh, by the way, I have to mention this, that all of this came to a head really in September when in Tigray they held local elections against federal government rule that had postponed all elections until due to COVID-19. So that was the thing that basically broke the camel's back. And it's a very bloody and awful conflict, sadly, with little international attention, and sadly, it could lead to a major conflict with Eritrea or Sudan, because relations between Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia has also been tense, because Ethiopia just finished building a major dam on the Nile River after 8 years, pretty much, of construction, which could significantly affect Egypt and Sudan's water supplies as well. And now this refugee crisis in Sudan, who knows how it's gonna go. But if I was gonna make my personal, views, or give my personal views here, I would say this kind of reminds me of the situation in Spain, where you have a rich and powerful region like Catalan, Barcelona area type, that wants to separate from the rest, that is sort of wants to keep its privileged positions in a way, kind of maybe perhaps like northern Italy separatist groups, that basically dominated the politics for many years, and they feel that they are the ones who should run the country. Otherwise, they sort of separate. Um, yeah, but who knows? Who knows? Oh, another important fact I forgot to mention was that Abiy Ahmed, a year ago in 2019, that's where actually your question was referring to. A year ago, Abiy Ahmed, who was the chairman of the coalition that ruled Ethiopia for the last 30 years, he dissolved that coalition. He created a new party called the sorry, I can't pronounce that word, Prosperity Party. For this party was formed from four of the five parties that formed the previous coalition, and excluded the Tigray Liberation Front, who viewed the dissolution of the former coalition as illegal and boycotted that coalition. They said they're not going to go into a coalition, but the other four did go into the coalition. So in a way, I suppose you can see this as yeah, Ahmed's struggle to gain full control of Ethiopia against the old guards, and again, nobody is a good guy, it seems, in this story, just like most of the stories we cover in international politics. Because as I mentioned, he's been accused of suppressing dissent, shutting down internet whenever he wishes to, so he's not a completely clean. He doesn't have complete clean hands, and as I mentioned, he's been accused of racial profiling against Tigray people.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sam, for this timely and very informative update. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Yeah, and just let me give this caveat that this was a topic that I had very little to no knowledge previously, so I did my research. I had some knowledge about the dam project, that's about it. So if there is something we missed or something we misreported, perhaps got our facts wrong, I apologize, and hopefully you can correct us in the comment section.